Hey, and welcome to The Residents, a series of 4 podcasts exploring community in the creative sector, specifically focusing on the Pervasive Media Studio, a brilliant community of over 160 artists, creative companies, technologists, and academics, all exploring experience design and creative tech in and around Bristol. The Pervasive Media Studio is a collaboration between the Watershed, University of Bristol, and UE Bristol, who've all kindly decided to support this podcast, so shouts to them. For this series, we invited residents who you might consider to be people of difference to chat with us on Zoom about how they were coping with lockdown. But we've also thrown some moral dilemmas or quandaries their way, if you will, so stay tuned. In today's episode, you'll be joining a conversation with residents who belong to different ethnic groups. We got together in June to speak about how lockdown had been for them and what it was like to experience this against the backdrop of a global shift in social consciousness around race. We covered a lot, but the convo seemed to centre around examples of self-care and systemic inequities. This one was interesting. So let's get to it. On today's episode, I'm joined by Adibah Iqbal, Fozia Ismail, and Nikesh Shukla. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Just going to go around in a circle real quick. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Adibah.
Sure. I'm Adibah, Bristol born and raised. I am working at the Watershed, particularly part of Rife magazine, as a mentor. So my job role is basically supporting young creatives of from marginalised backgrounds or underrepresented backgrounds into the creative sector.
Thanks, Adibah. Lovely to have you here, man. I'm really looking forward to getting into it and chopping it up with you. Nikesh.
Hi, I'm Nikesh Shukla. I am a writer. I edited The Good Immigrant, and I try to be a nice person. Sometimes I fail.
The point is you try though, innit? I love that. And last but by no means least, Fozia. Would you like to introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, hi, I'm Fozia. I moved to Bristol from London about 6 years ago. I spent 20 years working in direct community action and youth projects in London. But when I moved to Bristol, I set up a Somali supper club and I sort of do a lot of work around decolonising the food world.
Love that. Talent stack guests in here with us today. For our listeners, my name is Will Taylor, and I'm a resident at PM Studio. I work primarily in audio, making like short dramatic podcasts, work in talent development with different organizations around the city as well, with my work like quite heavily focused on inclusive practices. Yeah, man. So I was just wondering like how you guys have been and how you guys have like found adapting to the new social context.
I've been struggling a little bit, if I'm being honest. A thing that people started saying right at the start of lockdown was, oh, we're all in this together. The viruses don't discriminate. We're all in this together. And I think that over the last 3 months, we have seen that none of us are in this together. And that's been a really, given that those sorts of social inequalities are things that I think about a lot when it comes to my writing, and it's always there and it's always present in the work. But when you see it against the backdrop of people dying and people slowly realizing that, hey, social inequality isn't just that tweet that you scroll past when you're looking for memes. It's actually a real thing. And I found it really hard. I came off social media today just to take 2 weeks off because I feel like I've really been going at it. Every day I think about this quote from Toni Morrison, where she said the very function of racism is to distract you from doing the work that you're meant to be doing. I'm supposed to be writing, and I'm supposed to be writing about joy, and I'm supposed to be writing about people with brown bodies just existing in this world, and I cannot do it and have people on social media acting like we're all in this together and the virus doesn't discriminate and here's my black square and all the rest of it. So I'm just done. I'm done with the internet for a bit. I just need to really focus on me and what I want to say.
Yeah, man, I hear that, bro. Like, a lot of things have been brought to light. A lot of things that we kind of like knew by default. Do you know what I'm saying? Seeing that kind of stuff on social media and seeing how the government responds to it really, really puts things into perspective. How about you, Fozia?
It's been mixed. It's been mixed at the beginning. I kind of quite enjoyed the time with the boys. I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I just chose not to go into the whole homeschooling thing with them, to be honest. It's too much pressure. But what we have done is we've done a lot of walking, actually, in nature. We've been going to Lee Woods a lot. We've walked a lot, and that has helped. But equally, it's really been difficult with all my family in London. Being aware that I feel like I'm very privileged. My husband's job is secure, so I didn't have the stress of finances to worry about. But you know, I know a lot of people where it's just been devastating. It's really hard to understand where we're at with austerity and the impact it's had on different communities. Like Nikesh was saying, I think that's been brought home so much with the COVID deaths and with people battling to get access to the same quality of care. And I hate all the kind of scientific racism that's coming back into the discourse. The whole thing about vitamin D, the whole thing, like searching out for every excuse under the sun other than structural inequality and white supremacy being a massive factor in why Black and brown people are disproportionately affected. A friend of my sister's, who's a Somali nurse, quit her job actually in London over it because she wasn't being given adequate PPE. You know, and she was saying the truth is they do put Black staff and brown staff under pressure in COVID wards in a way that they wouldn't with white staff. So she had to quit her job, and I think that's shocking for it to be seen as like lots of pressure on her being like selfish or like at a time that they're needed. It's like, I feel like Black lives, you know, this whole movement is kind of to do with that. So that's been difficult. But I've just been trying to keep my family sane and trying to resist through that, really. That's all I feel I can do at the minute.
Yeah, man. I'm picking up like some tones that reflect what Nikesh was talking about. That thing of having to like really withdraw, because I think one thing I've really recognized is I'm fortunate enough to be part of a community that kind of fights this fight day in, day out. And it's just been incredible watching our government like shaking their boots. And I think people who have like invested and bought into that government and their policies might find themselves fielding questions from people who look just like them now.
But isn't that so depressing that like people in the government need people who look like them to tell them that this is a problem when people like us have said it's a problem? And it's just a constant reminder of who gets treated like a fully formed human being. One of the things that lockdown has really, really forced me to do is just be alone with my own thoughts. And I think that's where the darkness kind of comes from, because usually I'm just filling my brain with podcasts and interactions with people and cuddles and food from food trucks and like, you know, fucking about with people and all the rest of it. And now I'm just in this room here. Like, this room is my office and my gym, and because I can't sleep properly, also my bedroom, and because like where I do Zooms with friends and stuff, and it's just weird.
It's interesting. So Nikesh was saying, like, you know, he's like left alone with himself and what that brought up for him. I think for me, it's brought up like the exact opposite. Like, I never knew I was such a funny, charismatic,
Yes.
beautiful, engaging, you know, smooth woman. Before this. I didn't even know. I actually didn't. Like, I guess, like, you know, you kind of always are looking for like external validation, other people, you know, kind of commenting on something that you do that's good. I don't know, I'm not massive on social media anyway, so I normally get those interactions externally and like all those affirmations externally, right? So I think before lockdown, if I could avoid being with myself, I would do it. Like, you know, I would hang out with people, like even 5 minutes alone, I was like, oh my God, I can't. Like, I'm just, you know, I just couldn't do it. But yeah, I think, yeah, I've just been learning how to kind of like manage my emotions, which is something that I've always really struggled, because I've always looked externally to manage my emotions. Like I've always felt like I had to speak to another person to understand how I feel. And the feeling of sitting in an emotion without any kind of coping mechanisms that can, you know, sometimes be useful, but other times, you know, really stop you from kind of delving into actually how you're feeling and sitting with it. There's something quite scary about it, but with practice I realized that, you know, the first few times I was like, okay, I did it, I'm still here, and I overcame it. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I think also what I've been learning is like how important like compassion is. And it's like, you know, when we talk about evolution or how people, you know, evolve, you know, we often think of like, you know, fight or flight, and then you think about like, you know, survival of the fittest and blah, 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 blah. But I think in times like this, like, I've realized how compassion is really fundamental for us to be able to like move forward and exist still. So kind of just spending like more time. My friend was saying the other day, like, this is the first time she's experienced people just checking in on her before having a conversation. You know, people are spending more time to be like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And they have a slightly more space to be able to have that conversation with you because of where we are at right now.
I think like something I picked up in a lot of the conversations is kind of like that relationship between the self and what's outside, you know, immediately and a little bit further removed, you know. And I was wondering what kind of changes may have occurred for you guys in terms of your understanding of your like immediate community, you know, the day ones, the ones that you lean on, or what you're recognizing of the people who like call on you in their time of need.
I think what's really interesting, I live in a very white area, and I'm close friends with a couple of mums from the school. But recently, I think what's been interesting is it's allowed me to actually open up about racism in a way that I wouldn't have done before. And so suddenly I feel like I am at a point where, you know, I'm starting to push some mums in a way that I wouldn't have done before. It's really hard. I think it's really hard, like what community is, because it changes in terms of where you are at your life. I love the fact we're all having this conversation here. Like, I feel like through the studio, I've met so many amazing people that I naturally feel more at home with. So that's really helped. So I've had a mixed feeling about the pandemic and who checks in and all of these protests, because I feel like suddenly a lot of white middle class women are wanting to be involved in my life in a way that, and I have to go, I don't want to be. I want to protect it a bit more.
You're speaking real facts there, Foz. Every single person of color in my community is looking upon this situation with the same thing, kind of like, all right, cool. Well, what have you been seeing up until like a couple weeks ago? Do you know what I mean? Nikesh, like, you're talking about obviously like the difficulties around having so much of your life moved into one confined space, you know? So it's like one thing I recognized through lockdown was like different energies that I absorb, but then like all of those experiences and thoughts are like reflected back onto me in this like incredibly moody red room. What's been your experience of like connections with people?
One of the things I've noticed is when a white person checks in with me, it's, how are you? How are you? If you text a black person this week and go, how are you? You're basically asking them to basically lay a lot of stuff on the line for you. And I think that actually it's really hard to have conversations at the moment, because the thing about Zoom conversations and Zoom check-ins that I find difficult is you can't like read other people's body cues, you can't read their energy in the same way. And I think it's really hard. Like if you're talking to your family, there's like a level of emotion there because you can't be there with them to experience things, or they can't be there to experience things. Like my daughter had her 3rd birthday and we had to celebrate it on Zoom, and we've had people die in my community and we've had to attend their funerals on webcam. And then at the same time, like I've noticed in the last 2 weeks since George Floyd's murder, I've noticed like a real uptick in well-meaning white people on Twitter tagging me into posts about how shocked they are and they need to really educate themselves, and so they've bought a book called The Good Immigrant. And it's great that that book has found a new audience, but at the same time, we didn't put it together to educate anyone. We put it together to empower young people of color in this country to feel like they weren't weirdos, like they belonged to something, like they mattered. We certainly didn't set out to educate anyone. And so I've just found that sort of constant noise on social media that I'm an educator. I'm there to educate people. And like that optics of that message then bleeds into how people then text me, because then that means that people have been texting me since George Floyd's murder because they know they can't text the one black person they know to like ask me for advice on what to do. And I'm like, look, just read the room and also read the internet. Like the internet is your friend. Do your own Googles. Leave me alone. Leave people alone.
My favourite thing is just throwing a book at someone. Just one person, because I don't know, I do a lot of reading. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I like share resources? Like I started doing that not even that long ago. I think I used to spend so much time trying to like educate people, but the problem was they weren't listening to me and I wasn't listening to them. And then that's how I used to get into like fights. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would literally take it to the fucking street. And it's like, that's not productive for anybody. And then I found myself like, I was the one who was exhausted. I was the one who would leave that situation feeling like disempowered, that I had done something wrong, that I didn't articulate myself. I gave myself a hard time. It was more exhausting for me than anybody else, that I was talking to. I feel like some people just assume that you're always ready to like talk about race or talk about inequality. And it's like, sometimes I'm actually just having a drink. And I allow myself to do that now, because when I was younger, I was like, yeah, okay, come on, let's have a debate. Let's talk about the imperialist white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Let's do it. But now I'm kind of like, actually, do you know what? Let's separate this. And if I really want to just enjoy myself with some friends, I'm happy to give you a book recommendation. You're probably not going to buy it, but that's actually just where I end the conversation. I'm like, why don't you just pick up a book or read this article if a book's too much?
Mic drop. Yo, Adibah was some real fire right there. At this point, we went off and had a wee break because why not? We're doing this from home. But also had to get a little game ready that we'd planned. Given what we'd spoken about, I found myself even more excited about the type of answers we might get from our guests.
So guys, on to the next part. I've got a series of scenarios to present to you guys across different categories. The category is arts, tech, economy, health, and social. When I get to you, just pick one of those categories and I'll throw a scenario at you. So if you're good to go, Adibah, we'll start with you. Which category tickles your fancy?
I'm going to go for something that makes me feel like that I'm not comfortable with. So let's go for tech.
Tech.
I'm scared. Okay, yeah, tech.
Sweet. So the internet becomes unaffordable, but someone offers you a free total internet coverage SIM for life, but it has a tracking app that can't be blocked. Would you use it?
Okay, my feeling is, no, this is terrible. Okay, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
I feel
please.
like we're being tracked anyway. Like, I'm being tracked already. I'm not 100% happy about it because it's not great. Oh my God. I'm actually so stressed out and I feel like Nikesh is judging me. I mean, to be fair, I always feel like Nikesh is just like slightly judging me like all the time. But like, He knows. Savage, I know. Okay. Do you know what? I'm gonna say yeah. Go on then. I would like some internet, please.
Yeah.
I would probably do that. I don't think I'm up to too much. No, that's not how to think about it. Because you're not supposed to be like, oh, I don't really do much that's interesting. Like, you know, then why would they want to track me? But that's not the point, is it? It's like, you know, the morals and the ethics behind it. Judged. But I think I'm just probably going to take the internet and share it with my friends and family so they can all be tracked as well with me.
You snitch. You're like, I'll take everyone with me.
That wasn't even the question. It was like, do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, everyone, yeah, cool, yeah.
The question wasn't given the option to take the blame yourself or bring everyone you know down with you. You chose to not go down with the ship. You chose to just bomb the ship while everyone was getting off on onto the life rafts.
I feel like community is very important, and I'm very collaborative in my approach in work.
Can I ask a question? Who is tracking you?
Oh man, like in short, in one word, Babylon.
And what are they doing with the data? Because I'm just one person with that. I'm the only person with that phone, right?
Yeah.
I might go down with a ship, Adibah.
Ooh.
I might take one for the team and let them track me so that none of my people are being tracked.
Oh my God, Nikesh, why would you do that? Are we such a martyr? Oh my God. He's really here for the people. Asshole. I mean, I was more thinking like, I'll let people borrow my phone for a second, innit, to make a call to a friend or something, but I want it back. That's what I was thinking. Like, I'll get tracked. Yeah, I will also sacrifice myself, and I'll let you use some of my data. Anyway, yeah. Next question.
I love that. All right, cool. Yeah, next one. Nikesh, what category are you gonna go for?
Feel free to judge me on this, Adibah. This isn't like a general knowledge question. If I choose economy, you're going to go, tell me about the Keynesian, and I'll just go, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to give me like a moral quandary to do with the economy, right?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm not going to ask you a question I can't answer, man. That's like, I'm not like these other pub quizzes.
Well, I don't know what you've been reading while you've been in lockdown, so you might have become an economist boss in the last 3 months.
You know what? That's flattering.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to stick to what I know. I'm going to choose the arts.
The arts. This is an interesting one. This one had me thinking. If you could design, make, or build a museum of your choice that's completely curated by you, what would it be like?
The museum of that is a really good question. I think so many museums are either like, look at this horrible thing, or look at this thing that you might not have come across before, just with curiosity. I feel like I would want a museum to be a bit more celebratory than that, like the Museum of Brown Excellence or something like that. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like the best, most inclusive way of doing this because I'm a martyr, Adibah. No, you know what? The Museum of Food.
Oh my God, Nikesh.
I just blew your minds, right? It just came to me. The Museum of Food.
That would be good.
That would be so good.
And I'm not talking about like the boring shit like science and like how much protein is in this Soylent thing. I'm talking like
Tasty.
tasting, yeah. An interactive tasting museum of food.
That's so amazing. And then you'd have like a cooking class by like a South Asian woman, but with like no measurements. So she's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then you're like, sorry, how much? And you're like, she's like, until it feels right in your soul, in your spirit.
And instead of a cafe, the Museum of Food will just have partitioned off like massage beds where you can just have a nap because they're quite comfortable to nap on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well done, Nikesh. You really are out here.
I can't get over what that might smell like.
Oh man, it would smell amazing. I don't even know how you do it. Like whether you do it like, you know, what's her name? Samin.
Oh yes, salt, fat, acid, heat.
Whether you do it like that, or whether you do it by continent, or whether you do it by carbohydrate. This is the potato wing. This is like the rice.
I'm not trying to be rude on Nikesh. I'm just starting to realise that this idea is starting to sound like Zaza Bazaar. Because it's been done. You know, it's like a museum and you're like, oh, wait, let's learn more about India. Let's jump over there. And then you're like, Italy, everyone want to learn about Italy? That's basically, Nikesh, you just described Zaza Bazaar.
Can I tell you a story about Zaza Bazaar? I don't know if we're allowed to mention Zaza Bazaar. So it was the year before I joined the Watershed as in the engagement team. I was working like the worst marketing job ever. I hated it so much. I was depressed every single day. And not for the usual reasons, but because I also hated my job. And I turned like 33. It was my birthday and I was so depressed and I hated my life, and I just moved to Bristol and I'd just taken a job in Bristol. I was just like, I just need to be anywhere but here. And so one day it was my birthday, my 33rd birthday, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go for lunch. I'm gonna have a birthday lunch. I took myself to Zaza Bazaar, and I'm not even gonna take a book to read. I'm not gonna take my phone. I'm not going to take headphones or anything. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to stare at these people. These are my people now. And I sat in the middle of Zaza Bazaar, sampling food from every single continent, just looking around me going, this is your life now. Do you want this to be your life? You can change. This could be a moment for you to change. Or you could just be the type of person who goes to Zaza Bazaar at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday.
You're like looking around, you're like, wow, what a great museum. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, God, I felt very triggered remembering that birthday. That was a horrible birthday.
Bless you. Should we spin the Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah, let's do that. Foz, it's your turn.
Let's go with social.
Social? Okay. So, the government has introduced passes for social gatherings, but you have maxed your pass out. There's a historical event taking place in your city centre. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Do you attend?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fuck the government. Fuck their passes.
I love this side of Fozia. She's just like, did I tell you, Will? Did I tell you? I was like, Fozia's going to be like, fuck everything. I'm going to do what the fuck I want. I'm spinning the wheel.
I kind of want to do another round. How do you guys feel about doing another round?
Let's do another round.
Do another round, yeah. So Nikesh, what topic? What
people with 3 yachts.
Pick next.
You don't even need one fucking yacht. So I'm going to go for economy.
Economy,
yeah.
Right, sweet. There is now universal income in the UK, so everyone receives the same annual wage regardless of the job they do. Do you think this is fair?
Yes. You know what? I've been thinking a lot about money at the moment because obviously, like all of you, I lost a lot of work when COVID happened, and then a lot of the conversations around Black Lives Matter have now spread towards holding different industries to account. And over the weekend, a black fantasy writer wanted everyone to share how much their advances were in the publishing world as a way of illustrating that black writers, if they're lucky enough to get published, don't get paid fuck all. And found out that like N.K. Jemisin, who is one of the best fucking writers regardless of genre in the world, has won the Hugo Award 3 times in a row. No one else has done that. She got paid like 25 grand to do one of the most successful trilogies of fantasy books ever made, whereas like her white counterpart, who has not sold nearly enough as N.K. Jemisin has, got like £250,000. Like, I'm caveating this all with, like, I know that it's much tougher for black writers than it is for South Asian writers. I took part in the hashtag and I shared how much I got paid for each of my books, and I encouraged a couple of other people to share theirs. And my takeaway from it was that I really undervalue how much I'm worth. and people really overvalue how much whiteness is worth. And coupled with that, I was listening to a podcast interview with this guy called Anand Giridharadas, who wrote a book called Winner Takes All, which is all about how his theory that philanthropy is bullshit, because his theory is like, so what if Jeff Bezos pays $5 million to fund X for X amount of time? He made £350 million in 3 months himself, however much you carve off for like very specific philanthropy, it's not the same as helping to fix the system so that we don't need philanthropists in the first place. So I am really into that idea, Will. Obviously, I am naively going to say I have no idea how you make it happen because I'm not an economist, but I'm all for it.
Dude, you've spoken to some real things right there. If I'm going to be honest as well, man, because the whole underwritten fear into the virility of the Black Lives Matter movement right now in terms of white voices speaking out and exploring these spaces, the unwritten fear of it kind of tapering off once it's moving from social consciousness somewhat. Because now I know a few people holding their communities accountable and sharing with me that they're having very, very difficult conversations with their communities right now about system. It's fascinating to listen to some of these white voices speak about their disappointment, but having their loved ones uphold the system, and seeing where that disparity occurs, and how economy is such for me, an important place for us to take this challenge, and help people realize that if we don't address the economy and what it stands for, then everybody loses out realistically. And that's the thing I find fascinating. Guys, honestly, this conversation has just been incredible. And thank you once again so much for joining us, man. It's been nothing but love.
So, we could have talked all day, man, but we're going to have to end it there. I'd just like to thank my guests once again, Adibah Iqbal, Fozia Ismail, and Nikesh Shukla, and thank you guys for listening too. The Residence was produced, devised, and written by Joe Kimber and myself, Will Taylor, who was your host. And shouts to Javier Velastin for the music, man. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Just type in Pervasive Media Studio and we should come up straight away. Tell your friends to rate us highly wherever you get your podcast from. We'll be back soon.